I guess the first place I wanted to start is I'm trying to be timely with all this stuff going on around the world, and I want to get everybody's take on it. Is that how are you guys adapting to these months and months of restrictions and changes and different financial budgets people have? How have you guys adapted, and how do you think people can learn from the way you've adapted for like the new personal trainers coming into the industry? You know, they're really in a tough position. They don't have an established business. You know, they're just getting clients. What do you say to them and from what you've learned in this time? Kosta, hit us off. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're live now, aren't we, Alex?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, but so like before, this even happened, I've always was just doing I've never been an online coach before. I've always just been doing group sessions and one-on-one and individual programming and all that. And I've been sending programs out to athletes and stuff, but I usually run it through them first, right? And then after they've done the initial screening and stuff, then they take off that program. But I've never actually had to adapt and actually run sessions online, like through Zoom, which I had to learn because I'm not very tech savvy either. But I just had to how do I serve all the people that I currently have, especially through my group setting and all that sort of stuff. So I had to pretty much, learn how to, how to run sessions, learn how to record sessions, learn how to program sessions through online, which at the start was a bit, daunting. And, I'm like, might better, just was hard to get my head around it. But then after a while, once you get more into it, that was probably the biggest thing that I've learned so far is actually learn how to run online sessions and, and deal with people.
I think there's a lesson there. I think that's like it sounded like you didn't have like the online systems and programming set up, but so many people don't. I think would you say that's the thing that people should have as a backup?
Yeah, correct. Well, and now I'm just looking through everything. It's good to have different structures and systems, and that's what I'm looking for now, because just in case something like this happens again, it's good to have, a bit of an online system, to have, an outdoor boot camp system as well, and having a one-on-one stream as well, and also a group training stream as well. That's probably the biggest thing that has taught me, just having different things to help you serve the people, because, probably Dale and Tim's probably in the same boat. We're constantly in the gym and, and doing stuff, especially like me, I'm doing a lot of field-based stuff as well. But when all that stuff stopped, you have to you got to think again and be able to reprogram and restructure everything that, and you're really, really out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
That's if it's anything that I need to say, just about having more systems and more structures, just in case something was, to go wrong again like this, or have a backup plan. So if something does happen, you've got, you can transfer, your people that are coming to the gym into your outdoor setting, or the people that are doing one-on-one with you into the Zoom sessions, or that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at, and that's what my thinking has been lately, is just to make sure having the right structures and the right system, just in case this was to happen again.
Yeah, I think that's great, because it's not. I think it's not. For me, it's not if, it's when. Like, there's gonna be more disruption in the future. So why not prepare for it? Dale, what's your 2 cents on this?
Yeah, well, obviously, everyone was pretty blindsided by the decision to shut out gyms and PT studios. So I think everyone was sort of caught off guard a little bit. But I've sort of looked at it from the perspective that's an opportunity to utilize the time wisely. I've spoken to a lot of PTs, and especially in the first week, they were just, their words were they were just going to ride it out. They were just going to stay at home. They were going to go on Job Seeker or JobKeeper or whatever it was, and they were just going to ride it out until it ended. Where I sort of thought that was a bit of a waste of opportunity. Yeah. So I've been using this time as much as I can to sort of get my head back in the books, which is something that I haven't had the opportunity to do in the last couple of years, being so busy. So I've been able to sort of look back on some of this original strength training research, but then also come up with a lot of new content that'll serve us well going forward. So, the creation of a few new courses, a lot of content for PTs. That's basically how I've been using my time. But in regards to the clients, for me, it wasn't such a big change, because I tend to take quite a hands-on approach to how my clients are being dealt with when they're not with me in the gym. So I train a lot of PTs, a lot of people that I only see once a week or once a fortnight. So for them, their contact hours with me were fairly minimal to begin with. So I usually keep in contact with them via text message or email or whatever it is. So for me, it wasn't such a big step. A lot of my work is via correspondence anyway. It was just about getting through that initial period with, getting people equipment, finding out what equipment they had, and then dealing with it from there. So I think the prepared ones or the ones that did their work in the first couple of weeks of the lockdown have done really well. But there is a lot of people I think out there that have just sat on the couch and haven't used their time quite as wisely.
I'm curious, what are the resources, the books that you're reading right now? What do you and do you think that they're good ones for like early PTs coming in the industry?
Yeah, well, I think for me, like I've got a fairly extensive educational background, but for me, the thing that I was sort of missing and trying to explore is that the sort of true, the true reasonings, I suppose, behind doing what we do rather than new methods or new training protocols. It's just getting down to the nuts and bolts. So a lot of them were sort of heavy studies, heavy literature, dating back to the 60s and 70s. So it may not be applicable for the entry level PT, but going back over some of the books and articles that got me originally. So a lot of work by Charles Poliquin and guys like Ian King, Dave Tate on T Nation, basically just looking back over those articles and just reiterating the things that got me into PT in the first place.
For sure. Tim, what about you?
So for us, obviously, look, having Dal on board was a blessing because he was there. I think I was truly blindsided when we first hit lockdown, a bit of a shock. And he suggested doing like equipment rental packages with online coaching. So I was like, well, fuck. I had at that time, because I was so heavily focused with the business on one-on-one in person, I sort of resisted going online, right? But I always had a vision of long-term having like a high-end one-to-one online personal coaching service, which basically is like everything we do on our in-person surface, but in an online capacity, and then heading towards like different online income streams. And so the initial start, having those equipment rental packages, having people sign up to online with equipment rental, online just with whatever they had, helped survive and keep the business ticking over, but also helped sort of encourage like the innovation. So like now, I mean, I know, touch wood, if everything goes right, we're going to go back and open up on the 22nd of June. But I'm still working on an online business model. I'm still working on a few different phases of online systems. So, and basically creating multiple income streams and like a passive income potentially as well. So if something happens, like again, if there is disruption, it's okay because there's money coming in. So going back to your first question about like what would you recommend for the newer trainers now?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is like a lot of trainers that are paying rent to a gym think they're running a business, but when they're new to it, like really they're paying to have a job. You know what I mean? They're paying rent to have a job, right? So they've got to diversify. They've got to have multiple income streams. So this isn't like we just went online because of COVID and the lockdown. It's like, wow, we were forced to go online and innovate, but we will keep that. And that's something that they should do. They should have multiple income streams. They should have where like, okay, so if people, say the gym's lockdown's lifted, they're going back to the gym and working, but say they get a client that can't afford their weekly one-to-one services, there might be an online package that they could afford. There might be like a hybrid coaching method where it combines a bit of online and in-person training where they could afford. So my advice to them is to innovate, like use the opportunity now to innovate and work on things that you weren't doing, whether it's learning, whether it's mastering your craft, whether it's working, like learning the digital space and marketing, brushing up on sales. Like there's trainers and I'll give you these two examples. Like there's two trainers that I know that were working at the same gym, right? And one, he's super motivated and he's super like determined to succeed. And any obstacle he'll take, he'll just, he'll work on it. He'll find a way. And so he instantly, like the weekend after the day he knew they were going in lockdown, he set up a home gym, right? The other girl that was working at that gym, she took the week off before lockdown. And because she was worried that she was going to get sick. So you imagine that, like all the clients expecting one-on-one PT, right? And she's taken that week off. And then the next week they're locked down. What happened? Her business went, right? So don't sit on your hands. Don't like waste time. Don't think you're just going to get job keeper, job seeker, and it's all going to blow over. Like still engage your clients and work on getting your business in.
100%. I'm so glad you said that, because I don't think we should act like, all right, everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows from now on. Everything's just going to be fine, right? Oh, the restrictions are going to ease. That's best case scenario. The restrictions will continue to ease. We do a really good job, and the government doesn't spaz out and have some big reactionary changes to for an explosion of cases, if there is one. But if there is an explosion of cases or deaths, whatever, in the future, later this year, I think people can take what you guys have been saying, especially what you just said, Tim, and run with that. Build those online systems. Sow the seeds now when you have more time, so that you can make the harvest when shit hits the fan. Because it will.
Yeah.
100%.
From here, guys, I wanted to kind of shift gears to, each of you individually. Like Kosta, I know you do a lot of like junior development, and your background's more martial arts and fighting. I wanted to know basically, what do you think are the gaps in junior athletic development and even martial art fighting sport training that the new personal trainers and coaches need to know? And if you guys, Dale or Tim, if you got any opinions or thoughts on this, please chime in as well. But what do you think, Kosta?
Yeah, look, a lot of the junior development stuff, and why I'm so big on it, is a lot of coaches and a lot of parents still don't have a clear understanding of what junior athlete development really is, and S&C. So a lot of them think that you're going to get kids in 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They think you're going to be lifting heavy weights. Well, it doesn't. That's not what junior athlete development's all about. It's about teaching them how to jump, teach them how to land, teach them how to sprint. You know what I mean? Teach them how to decelerate, teach them all the good fundamental patterns, and build a good foundation for the future. So that's why I'm so big on junior athlete development, because I just think there's such a gap, and then nobody's doing it properly. You know what I mean? I still deal with coaches, and they're still doing static stretching before warm-ups, right? Before they go into their drills. It shouldn't be like that. You're going to be doing dynamic. You're going to do a lot of activation, a lot of mobility, get them moving well, and then they can do their football session. So I think that's why I'm so big on it, and I love it so much, because there's no one really. There is people doing it like yourself and Woodford and a few others, but I just think there's especially in the private sector, there's not many people emphasizing the importance of it. And that's why I'm so big on it, because a lot of people are still doing the wrong thing and training the kids wrong. And we know it's wrong, but for me, it's more about educating parents and educating coaches to really understand what junior athlete development really is. And that's why I've got such a big passion on it, because when I was playing sport, when I was younger, I never had any of this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? It was just pure, you're pure static and go for a long, slow distance run and all that sort of stuff, which is not athlete development. It's not helping you improve your playing performance. And that's why I'm so big on it, and I'm trying to educate and really change the way people are thinking. And then coming from a martial arts background, used to fight, kickboxing, and fought a few amateurs. Then I turned professional and had a few fights in that as well. But having that skill set, you know what I mean? And then people coming to me, they're not going to get boxer size, you know what I mean? They're actually going to learn how to punch and how to kick and all that sort of stuff properly, which makes a big difference for having someone down the road that's just done a certification in holding pads. You know what I mean? There's a lot more to it than just being a pad holder. You know what I mean? It's teaching them teaching them how to twist, teaching them all the right fundamentals. And the way I got into S&C mostly was because, I used to fight, but I never had my first 3-4 fights. I pretty much didn't do any S&C. It was just your old school, kickboxing, your sparring, your pads, your long, slow distance run. And I just knew I lacked I lacked strength. I lacked that, knockout ability, that, my body wasn't up to scratch as well. The way I looked for my first 2-3 fights, I didn't have much of a, nutrition. Even though I was studying, I never had it. So I just thought, like, there's more out there and there's more that I can do to help me perform better as a fighter. So I started doing a lot of research. I started seeing a lot of coaches, started going to a lot of gyms, just for my own benefit, because I knew there was more to just doing bicep curls and and triceps as a performance in SNC. So that's when I started to really work out. Obviously, you start to put things together as a fighter. You go, okay, you got to use your core a lot. You know what I mean? You got to do a lot of transverse work and all that sort of stuff. And I started really to understand and really, starting to emphasize on about programming and periodization and tapering and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's what my difference in my skill set is, because I've been through it and I've done it. So everyone that comes to me, if they come from I work with, even though I train a few amateurs and professional fighters, I still work with other fighters as well that have their own trainers, and they come and see me just for their own SNC. That's because I've been there and I've done that. So I think that's where I differ compared to other people, because I've been through those steps and I know what really works and what needs to be done to be able to perform better. That answers the question.
Yeah, well said. Dale and Tim, I know it's not your specialty, but do you guys have any thoughts on this? Otherwise, I wanted to ask you about body composition.
Dale knows his stuff when it comes to training athletes. So anything athlete development is one to ask.
Do you want to perhaps just reiterate that original question for me?
Well, Kosta had, it was specifically for Kosta, but it was about, where new coaches and coaches in general, what they can take and what they're getting wrong within junior athletic development, and what you guys would kind of say to those young coaches who often have to sell to the parents, which I think is a lesson in there as well.
Yeah, well, I think we're in strange times, because we've got the influence of Instagram and Facebook, and I think a lot of, especially younger trainers, and I'm probably in that age group, although I don't maybe consider myself part of that demographic, is that we're always trying to do the fancy, or the things that look good, or the things that might be trendy, or the things that might be in vogue, rather than actually doing the things that are needed to be done, even though they might be really basic. So I think for any coaches getting into any clientele, no matter what they are, is that they just need to know their basics and their fundamentals incredibly well. It doesn't matter whether you're training kids, training elderlies, training pros or amateurs. You've just got to know your basic programming and programming periodization and execution down to a T. You have to have it refined really well, and don't go searching for these fancy or extreme methods until you've got the fundamentals absolutely sharpened, because it won't work, and it'll put the client at risk, and it'll put you at risk as a coach. So really dig deep into knowing what your sets and reps do, what your exercises do, properly knowing the difference in adaptations between a 3-rep set and a 10-rep set, what you're going to get out of it. So if you can nail the fundamentals, then you're going to be in good stead, but don't really progress into anything more fancy until you know that.
Right.
And I agree there with Dale 100%. And a lot of PTs, they should have a system that they follow, as in like exercise selection, and have like an order from like going from easy down to complex. Because like Dale said, a lot of personal trainers that come and see me, they look like on Instagram and they go, oh, look at this exercise, and it's just like, mate, this is so complex. You can't make someone do that, because the way I look is risk versus reward, right? And first, make sure there is no risk, really. Making sure you nail the fundamentals, and making sure you have steps. You know what I mean? Have a lunge progression, have a step up progression, have a squat progression, and then tick those boxes off. And once you tick those boxes off, you move on. And that's what 100% I agree with Dale. Just nail all the fundamentals, and then slowly build a good base after that.
Okay, well that leads into what do you guys think is the most effective way to learn the fundamentals? Because you guys have partnered with us at Orphic, Dale and Tim, for the Certificate 3 and 4 in fitness. And our mission is to make the most comprehensive, highest quality cert in the country. That's it. So leading into that, do you think that is the way to develop those fundamentals? And why did you guys decide, candidly, us out of the hundreds of different other providers there are?
Look, when I first spoke to Alex about his vision with Orphic and that, so just backtracking, we opened our academy in 2017, I think it was, maybe it was 2018, and we're running continuing education courses and internships and that for personal trainers, right? And it was because I saw a massive gap from the current Cert 4s that were out there, and you know what they learn and their base knowledge at the start and what they need to know. So I was very fortunate. Like, I'm a dinosaur. You know, I did my TAFE course, Cert 3, Cert 4, 15 years ago, and I was taught periodization. I was taught progressive overload. I was taught like the fundamentals, right, to a decent level. And it's like the courses now don't have that. So when you know, I'd spoken to Alex and you know, seen his vision, and it was basically like, well, look, you know, in a few years we wanted our own RTO. We wanted to run our own Cert 3, Cert 4. They're coming on board. Like they've come to us. We can speed up that process. And you know, because the mentality is there. Like, we're seeing a gap in the market. We're seeing a gap where people are qualified, and the problem with like this Instagram generation is they get qualified, they think they're going to be a 100K a year trainer in the first year, or they think they're going to be an online coach. But fuck, if no one knows you, you're not gonna and you go online, you're gonna be competing against all the influencers and then all the brands that have been around for ages that have the results, right? So the fundamentals for these guys is super important. So yeah, look, I do think that there needs to be a thorough education for the Cert 3, Cert 4. I do like how we've been able to set up ours with Orphic, and having that combination of, like, it should never be online only. Like, these courses that are online only are fucking joke. Like, you learn so much of the technical skills in person. So there needs to be like that hybrid again of the online education for the theory, but maybe some lecturing theory in person, and then of course the prac development and the shadowing. Because even like, there's one organization I probably won't name, but they cut corners left, right, and center for their Cert 3, Cert 4. And it was basically everyone learned to push, pull, leg, and systemized programming. And their coaches, like, when I was getting their resumes, they were unemployable, and because they didn't know the fundamentals. But yeah, we need like, you know, the Cert 3, Cert 4 needs the right fundamentals and that. But then there needs to be a pipeline. Like, there needs to be the encouragement and the emphasis on continuing education. Like, Dal and I each have probably spent 200K on our education. Dal has actually probably spent more than what I have, right? And we still, like, we're lifelong learners, you know. We're still, you know, there's no way, like, obviously COVID changes things, but I can never see myself, even if I end up, like, you know, not seeing clients hardly at all, I can never see myself not doing courses. Do you know what I mean? So the emphasis needs to be on the foundations being created, right, in the actual Cert 3, Cert 4, and then the emphasis on continuing education.
Very well said.
Yeah.
It's just honest, man. It's
That's
just
it.
honest.
Appreciate that. Dale, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with everything Tim said. What I would like to add, though, is that it's definitely on the student, I think, to you know, excel. I think a lot of students, both going through Cert 3 and 4 and going through sports science degrees, are quite comfortable and content just sitting there and sort of, you know, partially learning the information that's been put forward, rather than sort of, you know, having their diligence and drive to sort of further themselves. So I think it comes down to the student more than anything in terms of, you know, whether they're actually thinking about what they're doing all the time, thinking about how to create better systems, better ways of doing things, and also, you know, going out and seeking information from people that have, you know, done incredibly well. So, you know, I mentor a lot of PTs, and, you know, a lot of them have been through courses quite extensively, but they just haven't been questioning what they've been doing. They haven't been, you know, really looking at what the what their education is, and then soaking it in and then implementing it. So I think the onus is on the student. But yeah, just to add to what Tim said, I think, you know, in terms of continuing education, courses will take you so far, but I think you know, private learning with practitioners that have excelled is definitely money well spent. So, you know, if you're in a certain niche, you're in the sport, you know, field sports sector, or if you're in the strength sector or whatever it is, you know, finding the top guys, and they might be internationally, hiring them out for consults, whether it's you know, face to face or via Zoom or whatever it is definitely money well spent. And I've done that a lot, and that's been the best use of, or at least in the last couple of years, been the best use of my you know, time and money to learn directly from, you know, the guys that are at the top of the chain. And you know, you get the best information that way.
Yeah, you guys did that. You guys did that with Charles Poliquin, the late Charles Poliquin. Can you guys talk about kind of the biggest lessons and highlights that stick with you to this day that you learned from him?
Now, you want to go first?
Yeah, I was quite fortunate to meet Charles on several occasions. I had some private time booked with him, which we unfortunately didn't get to you know, fulfill due to his passing. But you know, I studied with him in Victoria and in Western Australia on several tours in 2015, 2016. Like I think with Charles is that, yeah, he's quite or mesmerizing probably isn't the right word, but he's definitely a character. Yeah, he's definitely a character, and probably the things that I took from him is that you know, I suppose how to put things in a sequence over a period of time. I suppose periodization. He was probably one of the early influences on my style of periodizing strength training as well. But also, I think, you know, just the drive and effort that he put into, you know, getting better even at his age. You know, into his 50s, he was still, you know, paying professionals for consulting as well. He was still learning new skills. He was still, you know, liaising with a lot of other practitioners around the world. So even at the height of his success, and even, you know, before his passing, he was still investing in his own education. So, you know, for me, you know, to see a guy that was skilled in so many areas, you know, it definitely drove me to expanding my knowledge base.
So for you, it was just the idea of investing in education. For him, you saw that was kind of the biggest thing you learned from him.
Well, I mean, we saw how successful he was, you know, due to various reasons. He was, you know, at right places at the right time, and, you know, definitely worked with a lot of great individuals that helped him up. But also, he was skilled in so many areas. He was skilled in manual therapy. He was great with functional medicine. You know, definitely towards the back end of his career, you know, he worked with athletes in a multitude of different sports. But he was able to do that because he had a skill set which was bigger than anyone else's. You know, he could use frequency-specific microcurrent. He knew how to use IVs, and knew how to treat people manually for injuries. So for me, you know, I suppose copying that was something I aspired to, because it allows me to, you know, work with a variety of clienteles effectively.
There you go. Tim, what did you take from him?
The first quote I always remember was, you need to learn more to earn more. I did numerous consultations with Charles Poliquin. A lot of the time it was business. You know, and it's funny when people piss and moan about paying like over $100 an hour for a PT session or whatever. Every time I saw him, I'd pay for his courses, which were not cheap. And for private consults, it would be like $1,000 an hour. But that $1,000 I spent for that hour, I would make $8,000 from it, you know? So the two biggest things I learned from him, three actually, was, yeah, like I said, learn more to earn more. And innovation. Like, he wasn't a one-dimensional person. Like, he had, like as Dad said, he was multi-skilled, multi-talented, and, you know, it's easy for people to get a result once, right? But when you produce results time and time again, that's another thing. The other thing that I really liked was, you know, I did the last course, his last Bodyseeks course in 2013, and I remember him talking about things like in functional medicine and that and even in other consults in strength training, that I'd never seen the research for it, or I'd never seen, and I'm not that too heavy into the science. Like for me, if something works, I'll run with it. I don't always need to know why. Like if I just time and time again see the evidence of it working, I will. But he was that ahead of the curve that a lot of the time he'd say something, say in 213, and then maybe in 215 I heard that in mainstream media, or I heard that from other like scholars, like say Schoenfeld said something that I heard this from Charles Poliquin years ago. So the innovation was a big thing, and just the holistic mindset that he had. That's what. So one of my first coaches that I traveled interstate to learn from, I've learned heavily from him, and there was a whole holistic mindset of stress, sleep, digestion, lifestyle, and then obviously training and nutrition, and that helped started to develop the philosophy of Bodyseek. And that's how like from learning from either people that had learned from him or learning from him directly, there was a direct correlation between that and the speed of results I was getting with clients and the success that I had as well. So yeah, to summarize it again, learn more to earn more, innovate, and holistic.
And that informed Bodyseek, and that informed the creation of Bodyseek, and how that's your specialty for you guys. For those who don't know, for Dale and Tim, is body composition. At least from the outset, that's what you guys portray. What do you guys think? I mean, it's a big topic. It encapsulates nutrition, encapsulates stress management, holistic health, all of these different arms of health. What do you guys think people get most wrong? Because you guys have seen a lot, you've experienced a lot, seen a lot of people. What do people get most wrong with body composition? Most common mistakes you don't have to make.
I've been in the industry over 15 years. I've seen a lot of shit personal trainers. I don't even know how to answer that because I see so much wrong. I see fucking terrible exercise selection. I see people doing exercises for the gram, or people like jumping way too far ahead in the client's training age for exercise they shouldn't do. I see horrid nutrition protocols, like people with only a Cert 3, Cert 4 who've never done any other nutrition courses, just getting something that they got from someone who got from a bodybuilder who competed in the 1970s. And yeah, so nutrition is one thing people fuck up a lot, and it's even more scary when you get influencers or personal trainers that are influencers in the academic realm teaching their view on nutrition, and it's actually like basically starving people. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's a range. Like, look, it was a saying, I think I learned this from Charles too, 20% in the industry make 80% of the income. And I'd say that's definitely true for our industry, because I think only 20% of the industry is actually quality, Yeah,
it's Pareto's law, the 80-20 principle, and that applies to pretty much every industry. But from what I've understood from you, Tim, I'm trying to find the little nuggets in what you're saying, and that for the nutrition side, people or coaches often put their clients in way too much of a deficit, and
absolutely,
which wrecks their metabolic rate and endocrine system. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I see people either going just too low calorie in general, or just not understanding the macronutrients and the impact on hormonal health. So having women like down to 1,100 calories and they have no fat in their diet, it's going to fuck them up, right? But the worst, and you know what, like I won't mention them, but there's a gym that's been around forever that, like for many years, it specializes in competitors, and they don't know nutrition. They just do this old school bodybuilding stuff, and they're shred. Like everyone does the same programs, everyone does the same nutrition, and it's literally just protein and greens and minimal carbohydrates and next to no fat. And it's really just a survival of the fittest in terms of genetics. So they do get success, because they get people shredded. But it's what happens after the after. Do you know what I mean? Like, they get messed up. So, it's people just need to really invest in and learn about nutrition and learn about, what they're doing, like with the macro prescriptions, and what happens with people's bodies, like obviously a cert 3, cert 4 PT isn't technically qualified in nutrition. That's why you need continuing education. But there's things like we use eye nutrition. We like, I've done many nutrition short courses and mentorships and things over the years, but the best thing we've done is being able to use eye nutrition, and that's basically was put together by Stefan and Dane from Clean Health. So you got someone with a dietetics degree and someone with a nutritional medicine degree, and they put their things together, and everything's above board, right? So and even in the nutrients tab of that software, we can see the deficiencies even in the food selection that we make on people's meal plans. We can see if they're low in iron, low in zinc, low in calcium, so we can either further recommend supplements from there, or we can okay, well, this is wrong, we need to change this. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I could go on forever about that. There's so much being wrong, man. There's so much, like, and even just stupid shit, even like not having protein set high enough for like immunity or muscle mass or retention. Like, I just see fucked up shit all the time.
That makes me think, because I'm going through my own exercise nutrition science degree, and going through these nutrition units is a particularly, I love it, but you'll see that the recommended daily intake for protein is, I want to get this right, I believe it's 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So we're basically looking at around 0.8 to 1 times, so we're looking at like 70, 80 grams of protein a day, right?
More than that for breakfast.
Right.
That's the exact reason, no disrespect, that's the exact reason why I didn't do uni when it comes to nutrition, because I think as you get further, and like obviously you've done other courses and other studies, so that a little bit more, but the generic stuff, like I've had consults with people that have done nutrition course, like degrees or whatever, and it's like, the fuck did you actually learn? Or is this like the food pyramid government guidelines from 20 years ago? Like, what the fuck are you learning?
And that's like, universities definitely have their limitations, so I don't want to put that all in university. Those recommendations come from the government, from the health body of the government. Those are the recommended daily intakes. For example, 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, 2.3 grams. Okay, maybe for you don't exercise, you don't sweat, you're putting no demands on your body. But for the athlete, for the individual who's training, who has a high sweat rate and they're cardiovascularly quite conditioned, so they have an early sweat rate and a higher sweat rate, maybe you need like double that. And so these electrolytes are critically important. And so I think that just goes on to what you're saying, Tim, is like, we need to critically think, laterally think.
It can't be just a one size fits all for everyone. And it's
for sure.
Never gone down that path with the one size fits all thing. Like, it has to be individualized and specific to the client's needs.
Exactly. Dale, me and Tim have kind of, we've gone off for a little bit. I want Dale and Kosta. Dale especially, what do you make of all this? The nutrition side and where PTs get it wrong, and coming back to the actual body composition mistakes people make.
Yeah, well, I'll speak first about the general pop, and then I'll extend that to the PTs. I think just as a general rule, people eat poorly. I think that's especially more now, probably in the last 20 or 30 years, I suppose, compared to maybe what people were eating comparatively in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and that and especially females, not to single that demographic out, but people tend to eat very sporadically. They tend to eat little to no nutritional value in the first half of the day. They tend to eat not enough protein. So the typical diet for an office worker, for example, in Melbourne, they mightn't eat anything until 1 or 2 o'clock. Really, they might have a coffee to get their day started, and they might have a muffin, which is basically nutritionally void, and then they're really not eating until 1 or 2 o'clock. And at that time, they might eat a small salad with a little bit of chicken or something like that, and then they'll have a medium-sized meal at night, and then whatever happens on the weekend or whatever binges happen to make up the rest of the calorie intake that's preventing them from getting leaner. So I think as a general, people just eating poorly. So if people go back to eating what they should be at a very minimum, 3 decent sized meals a day, something fairly close to when they wake up, for breakfast that has some protein, has some good fat, a good lunch, good dinner, maybe some snacks in between there that are still comprised of mainly animal meat, good fibrous vegetables, good oils, stuff that come from the ground, stuff that's natural. I think it goes a long way to enhancing someone's health, and then by default there makes body composition changes a lot easier. So I think that's just something that anyone can implement on. And then we get a lot of people that go from having that sort of lifestyle and they become PTs, and then they don't, by default, they don't tend to recommend the right dietary interventions to their clients as well. Things like, as we said, things like cereal for breakfast, stuff like that is just not really, the ideal scenario. So I think as a general rule, people are just eating poorly to begin with and are malnourished. So if people can rectify that with the interventions that I said, it goes a long way. Supplementation is a big thing that can definitely help for body composition, and then people mess this up quite a lot, again because influencers on Instagram or things that look sexy and new rather than things that are going to help someone's health. So we need to look at supplementation as again supplementing the diet and then really enhancing health more than anything. So things like a multivitamin, a good quality one at that. Things like fish oil, things like something to help the digestion, so that might things like hydrochloric acid or digestive enzymes. A probiotic can go a long way, and things like and things to shore up more deficiencies like zinc and magnesium. We see deficient nearly always with people, so that can go a long way to enhancing health before we've even sort of talked about any dedicated fat burners or anything else to help specific needs. And then training too. I think we've sort of made a bit of a circle in the last few years. I think with maybe some of the evidence-based gurus having a bigger influence, I think the training for a lot of people has actually become less. I think people aren't training anywhere near as hard as what we've seen decades ago. We've got a lot of people that are just going through the motions. For good rapid body comp changes, you need to train at least 3, if not 4 times a week being the ideal, and you need to train hard. I think people are really forgetting that. Maybe for strength development we have to keep the volumes on the low side, but for good rapid body comp changes, you really need to be putting in the work and doing high volumes at that, and it can really go a long way to creating rapid changes. That doesn't mean to say you should be doing that all the time, but I think to create good changes, you really need to put the work in the gym. So if you can hammer down those 3 things, it can really go a long way.
Well said. Kosta, you've been observing in the background, listening. Do you have anything to say on all this?
Oh, look, I'm on the same. I still do a lot of body composition stuff as well. We do a lot of 9-week challenges and all that sort of stuff. I like Dale said, a lot of people will just eat poorly from the start, and just about changing, those habits, even from just as little as, even having breakfast and making time they can have breakfast and they can wake up that 15 minutes earlier and then work out with a client, even if it's, making a juice in the morning or a smoothie, just to even kickstart their day, kickstart their metabolism. Because a lot of people are not just, they're just eating poorly, they're not eating enough, they're not eating often, they're just, like the boys were saying, as we all know, they'll look on, Instagram, and they look at all these influencers, having this. Doesn't mean if they're having that, doesn't mean it's not going to work on you, because everybody's different. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So everybody needs to be looked at and monitored different, different body sizes, different goals, different everything. But like I said, with a lot of PTs that I said, they pretty much, they'll use this, that they come to me, they'll use the same diet on like 6-7 people. It's like, it's not going to work. And a lot of deficient, like I'm seeing like a lot of 1,000, calorie diets. Like you can't do that when someone's training 3-4 times a week. And that's a scope that I want to change, especially in the fighting game. There's not that much knowledge around it, right? So a lot of people, they come, usual fight training will go for 2 hours a night. But a lot of them are not fueling up throughout the day. They'll have something small. They'll have like before I started training a professional boxer, Johnny Manuel, give him a shout out. He's had, he's great talent, but his nutrition was so poor. When I worked it out, he's only having like 1,300 calories a day, and he's training like 3 hours a day. He's doing a road run in the morning, coming in, and no wonder why he's always tight, because he's not fueling his body to maximize his performance. So I changed the way he thinks, I changed the way he eats, I changed the way he comes into the training, what he carries in his bag, right? And it needs to be more education and then around all that sort of stuff. And especially with my junior athlete development, I tell them, they wake up in the morning, they're running late, they're going straight to a game. That's worse. That's injuries ready to happen. So just changing those habits and, putting documents together for them just to give them 4 or 5 different things they can have for breakfast. But obviously what works for me, Alex, and what works for you for breakfast, it's not going to work for someone else. So you give them, 4 or 5 different, ideas, and whatever works for the individual and whatever they feel good on game day and all that sort of stuff, they can run off with that protocol. And that's why the boys were saying before, it can't be a one size fits all approach.
But one size fits all is easy to make money. You make one program, you make it look sexy, there you go. There's my 100K.
Yeah, but the same, that's right. But we can't, you're not going to get results. And everyone that we get through the door, especially like, junior athlete development and, getting senior athletes, when you do like a screening on them, everybody moves different. Everybody needs something, right? And you can't just sit there and you build the foundation, but at the same time, work on the weaknesses that they have. And like the boys were saying, we've got to, it's like me, I look at the people that, have done where I want to be, and I just follow them and just got to keep educating and always keep upskilling, because you can never stay complacent. Knowledge is power, and you can never stop learning.
For sure.
I think the one that I like the most, if you think you know everything, you're pretty much dead.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't,
It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Is that, I don't know if you guys have seen it or heard of it. It's at the start, you think you know a lot, but you know not much, and then it increases and it goes up, and you once get to the point you realize, I know more, but there's so much, like the huge thing that you gotta look it up to. If you guys, anybody listening who doesn't understand it, look up the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah, no, I completely understand it. I never forget going to Luke Lehman's Muscle Nerds the first time he ran it in Melbourne, and I was like, I'd come off a few successful comp reps, and look, largely it's always been gen pop, and things were going well, and then I was like, fuck me, like I know a lot, but this guy is just like another level. What the hell? It was just a different world.
But that pushes you. It either pushes you, it scares you and intimidates you, and you get down, or it pushes you further towards excellence. You decide.
And that's it. And you know what? It's funny, like being in the industry as long as I have been, I feel like I'm more passionate and more hungry to get better now than ever before.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think because I've seen success in the studio, I've seen success with our results, and the fact that, we've got a good market, we've got a good demographic, like it's majority general population, upper middle class to high end, and just being that person, being able to help people really achieve something that they couldn't do elsewhere. That's, and like, I never want to get complacent. Like, I don't want to always want to get better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So if I'm getting a great result now, I want to get an excellent result later on. Like, I always want better.
Right. Absolutely. It's that chasing of excellence. I want to talk about the certificate 3 and 4. Not ours necessarily, but in general. Like, what did you guys find when you did your cert 3 and 4 that was helpful? And what do you think are the biggest gaps that you wish were filled?
I did my cert 3 and 4 back in 2010. Again, like just one of those short courses. To be honest, I didn't learn much. I think once I walked away from it, that's why I was like hungry. I'm like, I need to keep learning. I need to keep learning. I need to keep getting better. I think the biggest thing was there wasn't that much practical application. It was like you go into the gym downstairs, and then they just take you through 3-4 machines. It was just more about getting you over the line, so they can they get you over the line, and that's it pretty much. So like, all right, here's your test. But remember what we did remember the first exercise, that was pretty much the first answer. Remember the second, there's your, pretty much the answer. There wasn't that much, actually going in depth and actually learning how to program as much. And, and then even just, they could have brought in, they were teaching like a boxing segment. And, obviously I know my boxing, but the guy never done any boxing. And they're just trying to put a few things together, which I knew was wrong. So I think it's just about getting the right people. So if you want to teach a unit on nutrition, but the guy that's teaching it doesn't have no idea about nutrition or no background, no degree, shouldn't be teaching that unit. If you want to teach boxing, but you've never had any boxing experience, get someone else in. So I think that was the biggest gap. The practical application wasn't up to scratch. It was just pretty much a quick course, get qualified. There wasn't that much learning. I left. Once I did the course, I was hungry to learn. I'm like, where do I go from here? I went to Melbourne Uni, Diploma of Sports Development, ASCA, functional movement screens, went overseas, learned from people that are up there and, subscribe to pretty much every, so many different subscriptions, like the Joe DeFranco complimentary PT, Science for Sport, and like 3-4 other stuff that I do. I've got books, I've got DVDs. I always keep asking people that are above me, to mentor me and help me out just to keep learning, because a Cert 3 and 4 did not have up to scratch enough practical application, and that's all we need. And just a bit more theory. I just didn't think it was. I think it was just too basic, and there was just like, come in, let's get qualified, and that's pretty much it. And I've learned everything away from that, and pretty much doing it myself or learning from people from up the top. I don't think I can recall taking much away from my Cert 3 and 4.
Well, that's the frustrating thing, and so many young coaches and older coaches like you guys look back and be like, this was shit. But for some optimism, well, of course we're biased. I'm sure there's other companies out there who are trying to do a really great job too. But there are companies like Orphic who are trying to fix that. Exactly what you said, Kosta, and make the best certs so then kids and young students and young trainers can come out and be prepared and confident and competent.
And that's why I've got about 6-7 PTs that come to me for mentoring, and then first question I ask them, just give them scenarios and all that sort of stuff about programming, and they have no idea at all, not even a basic. Where do we start? What do we do? What's step number 1? What's step number 2? They don't have that, because not even in their certs are actually learning that, right? And then not just that, there's a lot of online PTs out there. How are you going to become an online personal trainer when you can't even talk to a person? That is, personal training is face to face, right? Group training is face to face. You've got to know how to, communicate and execute exercises by demonstrating. So, in a lot of them that come to me through online, they have no idea. They don't even know what activation actually is. You ask them about mobility, they think about static stretching before a class. As I'm saying, the education is in Cert 3s and 4s 99% of the time. You don't learn what's really working in the real world. And when I tell them, they're like, okay, I never got taught in the course. I'm like, what did you get taught? So they show me a book with like 10, 15 exercises that are on a machine. Do this, chest flies like this. It's like, no, learn how to move. That's what I've gathered from all the ones that I'm getting, and that's what's frustrating me. That's why I want to try mentor as many people as possible, just so they can get to a better level and a better standard, and whatever I've learned through my journey, pass it over to them so they can become a better coach. But most importantly, have more confidence in themselves to take the sessions, because when they come to me, they're very down. Like, I can't get results. I don't know what to do from here. I don't know how to progress them, because all they're doing is trying in 20 exercises and hoping for the best. And I said, no, scrap it back. Start with your big compound. Go to unilateral work. Do you know what I mean? Do some supplementary work. Do some core work. Then do conditioning, right? And have them a bit of a template, because they don't even have a template to train their own clients. And when you're like that, you realize, you go, I can't keep doing this anymore. Like, I'm not getting results. And that's why they lose the passion, because they don't have any direction for their client. They don't even have any direction for themselves.
I appreciate your passion, enthusiasm, man.
That's what I'm actually starting to realize. And the more I do it, the more I'm getting fed up with these courses. They're not learning at all.
That's going to change. That's changing now. Dale, Tim, what do you think?
I can go first.
Mine's pretty short. I actually never did a Cert 3 and 4 in personal training. I was fortunate enough to get recognition of prior learning through an exercise and sports science degree. So I can't really comment on a Cert 3 4 that I did, hence that I never did one. However, I can comment on the exercise and science degree that I did. And I think this is a common theme is that people are coming out of universities lacking the skills required to to train people effectively. They got a very thin but broad level of knowledge across a variety of domains, but lacking in the specialization skills that are required to train someone in the gym. So I think regardless of whether you've come out of a degree or whether a Cert 3 4, you really have to spend your time in the trenches. I think honing your skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I was fortunate, Alex, like I was saying to you, I did my TAFE course in, I think, 2005. And this was before even like the AIF was around, or it was just before. It was a blend of full-time and part-time tuition. And like when it was full-time, we'd be there, say Monday to Friday. All morning would be theory, all afternoon would be prac, and then there'd be a recap. I was really fortunate that my two main lecturers were people that were very successful in the industry at the time as well, like the assistant lecturer and the guy who took us for nutrition and a few other things in the course. He was working with Dennis Pagan at Carlton at the time. He was doing their nutrition, he was doing their rehab, he was doing the works. And Nigel Alex, one of the biggest influences of my career, was, I think back, like he had his exercise science degree, he had his master's, he had his own studio and sold it, been successful. And they just taught us a lot of practical application, the theory, and the reasons why. So I always say when I'd finished my, and even the periodization, like they don't learn that now. So when I'd finished my Cert 3, Cert 4, I was qualified to be able to sit down with a client, do a consult, and plan all their programming based on their end goal for 12 months, right? And, I just needed to go. I just needed to get my foot in the door in the gym and work. And the other thing too, back then, you needed to do your 30 hours on the floor to get signed off. So right after I'd finished my course, I did my 30 hours at my local gym, and I'd gone through their processes and their systems, and I was ready to go to work in a gym environment as a gym instructor back then, and obviously be successful. I think the downfall was there was that much more focus on being a gym instructor, and that at the time, personal training was still not so popular. There wasn't much focus on the PT session. Like I learned that in the trenches, but now it's a different world. Like the guys basically, the courses now, unfortunately, and obviously Orphic are changing that, but the courses now is basically a piece of paper to qualify you to learn more in our industry, and that's what they've got to do. Like from the outset, the amount I learned in my course is probably the equivalent of 4 extra courses per Cert 4 now.
All right. Well, at least you were fortunate enough to get a solid foundation with your one, and which people can get if they know how to source a quality certificate. And we got a question from someone who's chimed in on the live, Lachlan Puyol. From a strength and conditioning perspective, we know that simple foundations is key. How do you sell simple exercises in the private sector to maintain clientele? Kosta.
Well, you got to, Lockie, great question. He's one of the boys that I mentor as well. It's just about if they, was that juniors, Alex? Was it a junior?
No reference to juniors, just how do we sell simplicity?
Well, it's just about telling them what the goal is, really, and say this is where you're going to be. This is where I want you to be. You got to give an athlete a vision, what they have to work with you. That's why I believe in it. That's why I think I've got success. And people think, S&C and development is just they don't last long. But a lot of my athletes have been with me for 4 or 5 years, right? Because they know where I want to get them. So it's never, like the way I like to look at it, it's to an end, not the end, right? So when you get to a goal, it's to get to another goal, and making those different parameters. Can you body weight squat? After a while, can you goblet squat? Can you front squat effectively? Can you back squat? All right, you've done that, no problem. Now we're gonna squat 1 times your body weight. We're gonna squat your body weight. All right. After that, we want to get 1.5 times your body weight. So I'm always always got to give them that vision where you want them to be, right? And if you do testing, which I do, a lot of high performance testing, 20-meter sprint, agility, endurance, and all that sort of stuff. And then you look at it as a whole and you go, okay, you are lacking in this aspect. Okay, we want to improve this. So when we come back and retest in 12 weeks, we want this to improve, not so much with this because you're really good. So you got a good 20-meter sprint, fast switch fibers, your endurance is not the best. This programming that we're going to do is going to help you with this to get to this level. So if you get them to buy into your vision and where you want them to be, you have long-term success. And then you got to have that buying and that check-in. And again, we in the industry where we need to get results. So if they see their improvement in whatever you do, they know that they have their trust in you and they go, you know what, no problem, we'll do whatever. And that's probably the best. I can keep talking about this.
No, that's great.
Question, but I think that's probably the best.
That's so important. I think it's a reminder for all of us that, every client has a different set of goals and different outcomes that they want. And it's a constant reminder and giving them something to aim towards. And that's going to help accountability. That's going to help retention. All right, why is client retention low? Well, are we giving them something to work towards physically, mentally, habit-wise, beyond training, all of these things? I think it's a great, great reminder and super practical advice, Kosta.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Dale, what do you think? The question's in the chat if you forgot.
Yeah, I mean, moving on from what sort of Kosta said, I mean, we're not really in a, we're in the training business, but we're in the results business. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're paid to do is get people results. So I think, as Kosta alluded to, if people are seeing those results are happening, then it's quite easy to keep clientele on. If they don't see results happening, then it's quite easy to lose them. And I think that's where people fall into the trap of needing to invent fancy exercises to keep the client amused, is that they're not actually creating them results. They're trying to keep them entertained. I mean, I'm quite fortunate, whether it's been from a sporting clientele or Gen Pop or whether it's PT clientele, the people I tend to deal with are, they're quite educated and quite smart. So I think, it's relatively easy if you're talking sense just to explain to them, this is what we need to do to, get to where you need to be. If they're seeing those key things improve, then it's quite easy to keep clientele. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting results, I think that's when a lot of people feel the need to do fancy exercises to keep people entertained.
Absolutely.
Results business, get results. Tim, what do you want to finish off with?
I was just sorry, I got interrupted by an email. Look, I've got nothing to add on that question.
How do we sell the simple exercises? Nothing extra to add?
Again, no, nothing else to add. It's just results, and you got to, it's the art of coaching. Like you get the buy-in in the initial consult, and so you're demonstrating value, you're showing results of obviously previous clients, but the language you use and the confidence you have, that's sorry.
It's all right. The language you use, yeah.
That's where you should be able to get the buy-in, and you should be able to explain to the client, like, okay, that's a shit exercise, or that's an Instagram exercise, or yeah, that's a great exercise, but you're not there yet. Like, you need to, crawl before you walk, and this is where you'll start, but this is where you'll be.
Great point. And you give them something to work towards. You give them measurements. You measure now, you make a plan for the future, and you measure periodically. That's why recording every rep, every set in programs is so critical.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to be respectful of your time. We're going a bit over an hour now. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. I just want to leave you guys with, if you got any last parting thoughts, comments, asks of our audience. If not, tell people where people can find you and what you want to give to them.
No, I don't have much to add to that because obviously we're running out of time. If anyone wants to find me, you can search up Seven Fitness on Instagram or Facebook, or you can just direct message me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm more than happy answer any questions anybody has. With the help if anybody's lost in a bit of direction, especially PTs, you can reach out and we can have a chat. And then that's pretty much it, really.
All good. Thank you, Kosta. And you guys are Bodyseek?
First.
Yeah, and you can find us at Bodyseek through Facebook, Instagram, or web. Personally, me and Tim are online through those mediums as well. So we're always happy to take your inquiries or questions. Just some parting words. I just hope everyone that's tuned in today, continues to use their 3 weeks until gyms are opening wisely. Work on the things that we talked about today, and just be relentless in pursuit of excellence. So that's all I've got. So I'd like to thank Orphic for their time today, and hopefully we might be able to do something like this again and keep people educated.
Absolutely.
Definitely up for that. No, thanks for your time, Alex. Thanks for the opportunity today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
We'll speak to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Done. All right, guys. This webinar Wednesday is done. Here's where you can find about all future ones. The next one we got is with Brett Bartholomew. That's right, Brett Bartholomew. Let me scroll down, and you guys are going to see. We did Mick Hughes. This was this week, and then we're going to be updating this, and you guys are going to see that all the upcoming schedules and shows will be here. You're going to see our past podcasts here, which are all on YouTube, Spotify, all podcasting platforms is coming now. And if you guys want to be informed of when our next podcasts are, our weekly podcast every Wednesday live with different coaches from all around the world, just go to Orphic Education Webinar Wednesday. We do Certificate 3s and 4s in fitness. If you hadn't already known, if you're a trainer or know somebody who wants to become not just an okay trainer, but actually cares about being great in this industry, then let us know, and we might be a good fit for you. Stay tuned for next week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.